So welcome to ProfileTree TV, and today we're going to talk about mental health. So Richie, thank you very much for taking time out and coming in and talking to us today. You would mind telling us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, so my name's Richie and I am the founder of Mental Health and Life. It's an organisation that delivers mental health first aid courses to businesses and individuals. And also it's an organisation that does charity work. We use our profits from our courses to deliver these courses to the underserved parts of the community. So we're talking about people like the homeless, the prison service, sex workers, and generally people that will never have the money or have the support around them to do these courses. And if you look around, those are the people that are probably in the most need of it as well. So that's what we do.
Brilliant. So mental health and life, a great name as well. It says what it does, so which is brilliant. So it's really focused on delivering training to these groups. It's
focused on training. So what we do is we deliver first aid courses, and there's three levels actually of it. So mental health first aid, a lot of people, when they hear that term, they don't actually know what it exactly is, because mental health is such a big, broad subject. But mental health first aid, and how I always explain it, is the same as first aid. Okay, so you're not a counsellor, you're not a therapist, okay, you're not a doctor. They would, I would say, on this side of the spectrum. And as a mental health first aider, you're over here. But you are that front line of the people that you train yourself up to talk to people, and you fill that gaping void between a person becoming mentally ill initially to them sitting in front of a therapist, because at that time they might be going through the mildest symptoms that could be solved by just being able to talk to someone. Okay, and what usually happens with mental health is that people deal with it. I mean, men suffer depression for 15 years before they get help, before they go to this side where they see a doctor. So what mental health first aid does is it trains the everyday person like me and you. It could be your mum, your brother, your son, your daughter, to actually acknowledge what mental health is, spot signs if they might think that someone may be suffering from mental illness, and then being able to talk to them, listen non-judgmentally, and signpost them to professional help. Okay, so when I mean signpost them to professional help, like I said, you're not a therapist, you're not a counsellor. That takes years of training. Okay, but I could say, like, Ciaran, some of the stuff you've said and some of the stuff you've described, okay, you might be suffering from a bit of anxiety or depression. Okay, I'm not a doctor, I can't diagnose it, but you're showing the signs, the symptoms. That's what I'm trained for as a mental health first aider. Okay, and here are the organisations that you might want to talk to that you can get professional help from it. Okay, and that simple conversation does not happen. Okay, believe it or not, that simple conversation doesn't happen, because when we think of someone who's mentally ill, we automatically, because of the stigma, we automatically say to ourselves, that's got to be dealt with somebody else. That's way above my thinking skills, but it's not. All of us have mental health, so all of us can talk about it, and that's the most important thing about mental health first aid. It gives us the training and the knowledge to actually turn around to your dad, turn around to your son, turn around to your best friend and ask him, are you okay? No, are you really okay? Tell me what's going on.
Wow, that's an amazing explanation of what, the services you offer. So very clear. And as you're talking there, I'm thinking how many people suffer with problems or things for so many years and don't even probably realise it themselves, but maybe people are, and their family and friends are identifying or seeing something's not right. And not putting two together and identifying those signs. So you're really empowering people to recognise those issues in their friends and family.
Yeah, and not just their friends and family. What mental health first aid does is also tells you to look out for symptoms of yourself. And when I was getting my training as a mental health first aid and the instructor, I remember some of these amazing instructors I came across. They used to tell me, they said, what's the first thing of mental health first aid? And we were like, well, I don't know. I said, it's the word first. I said, okay, so what does that mean? He said, when you're in an aeroplane, okay, and all the oxygen tanks drop down, okay, the people in the aeroplane say, right, you don't put it on your child first or someone next to you, you put it on yourself, then you help the people around you. And mental health first aid it's one of the main things is about looking after yourself. Because if you do become a mental health first aid and you're working for a company, you'll have people coming up to you with their issues day in, day out. And that will have a mental impact on you, So you must learn to look after yourself, because you can't help someone if you're not mentally well yourself, So, and to be honest, we have to make the distinction, this real clarity on what mental health is, everybody dips in and out of mental health problems. So, you might go through life and something might happen and it might make you anxious for a while. You might have bills piling up. Yeah, we all have mental health issues. Not one of us escapes. And 1 in 4 of us in the UK are diagnosed with some sort of symptoms, okay? But it's when those symptoms last persistently for 2, 3, 4 weeks, that's when there's a problem. So, today you might get a fine through the door and it makes you down and you're depressed for a couple of days. But then you think, you know what, at the end of the month, when I get my paycheck, I can pay that. And then you're all right. But if them feelings last for longer, then you actually need to speak to someone about it. And there's so many organizations out there that are readily available via email, by phone call, by text message that you can speak to. And these are the kind of organizations that kind of need, mental health first aiders are like the cheerleaders for them. Look, just speak to these guys. It's free. It's not going to cost you anything. And that's why mental health first aid is so important, not just in the professional life where we spend most of our, time at work, but also in everyday life, because you don't leave mental health at the doorstep when you go to work. You don't leave mental health at the doorstep when you go into your house. It follows you around everywhere you go, just like your physical health, And what mental health and life try to do is make people understand that it's okay to talk about it. There is no stigma in talking about it. And also that physical and mental is both health together. Don't separate the two, So, if you're at a place of work and your boss has first aid at work people all around you trained, because if you trip and fall, there's someone there to help you out. Well, it's the same for mental health as well, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to push mental health first aid into every company because we'll talk about it during this interview, because it's costing the UK employers billions, and I'll talk about that report from Deloitte later on in the interview.
Wow, amazing. And it's incredible, as you're saying there and talking us through this, is that, everyone suffers, and I'm sure, I'm thinking back to some personal experience. You're right, there's some days, and it's day or days, periods that you go through. I definitely have went through where things don't feel right, and you're having a tough time, and no matter what you do, it just seems to go wrong, and the whole world, everyone seems to be just conspiring against. There's no luck at all. But it's really so if that kind of a feeling continues for multiple weeks at a time, then that's when you should maybe reach out and try and get some help.
Definitely. So if you were a mental health trained person and you're trained to spot these signs and symptoms, I might come up to you, where I might be your best friend in the pub, I might be a colleague at work, and you'll be able to talk to me and get that information out of me. And just now what you just did, this is the great thing about mental health. Everyone's so desperate to talk about it. As soon as we start talking about it, someone tells you their personal experience, because all of us are, and it's a conversation that everyone needs to have. It's the best conversation you can have, in fact, but no one's really wants to really talk about it, because we're all self-medicating by going to the pub and having a drink and forgetting about it. We're doing all of this other stuff to take our minds off it. But what we really need to do is talk about it, and it brings people together. It brings human beings who are completely strangers together. It brings families together, and it brings businesses together and the people that work for them, and I'm glad, like I said, with with all the bad stuff that's happened with COVID-19, one of the best things it has actually done is brought mental health to the tip of everybody's tongue. It's brought into every household in the UK, and it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, you're totally right. I definitely recommend, or back you up on that one. Again, I'm thinking of all the, we're all changing. We're working from home. The pressures of the job. With people on furlough, is there going to be a business tomorrow? What's going to happen with health and everything else? So there's more pressure today than ever, and I do feel that people are talking more about mental health. And again, I'm thinking, I've actually never had to sit down and talk to anyone, heart to heart. But there's definitely no doubt, as you've described it, there's definitely been periods of time, and even during COVID, days at a time, you're just thinking, oh my word, is this going to end? And you're just hanging on to Friday. You can't wait just to get a gasp of breath and to reset. But there's a lot of pressure on, for sure, for everyone. So it's interesting times. And I do think talking about it is so important. And you mentioned their businesses. So you really think that businesses as well should focus on workplace mental health?
Yeah, I mean, so funny enough, funny story is that my initial background was I was in business, and I was a business consultant, and I was actually in the beauty industry. I ran two of the most successful hair and makeup training brands in Europe. In fact, in the world. I was based in Shoreditch in London, and it was called the London Hair Academy and the London Makeup School. We used to train people to become hairdressers and makeup artists, and also train professionals to further their art. Now, I shouldn't actually be saying this, but I was at university, and I was looking at how to create businesses in saturated marketplaces. So I randomly chose the beauty industry, and I was so confident at what I found, I actually remortgaged my house. I went for it, and the rest is history. I launched in 2010, and by 2018, I had 50 staff. And as the business developed and grew, I realized that I have actually no interest in the beauty industry, but my interest was actually in people. So as my business grew from and I created management teams, I created everything around my ethos. And basically what I did was I was nurturing. I made my management team. I created my own appraisals, my own frameworks and stuff like that. And what happened was, what I noticed was that when we were nurturing the well-being of the staff, my business was growing 30% year on year. And then on 1 year, we had a growth of 210%. And then Business Matters magazine came to us when they heard about it and featured me in the Made in Britain section. And in 2018, I was so much into it that my business was kind of running itself anyway. And I had 50 staff and 10 people management team that was under my ethos and my vision of how a company should run. I didn't want anyone to come through my door and be unhappy. And in 2018, I don't know if you know of Investors in People, they're actually the organization that goes around at all the companies in the UK and outside of the UK and look at HR strategies of what the employee is doing for the staff and how to nurture them and support them. And I actually won People's Manager of the Year in 2018 for that work. And I didn't win an award for the beauty sector I was actually in. But I was glad because my interest was actually with people in HR. So
that's incredible. Yeah, and I know of the award, and that is not an easy award to win.
No, it's not. I was actually sitting on a table with a gentleman that had flew in his own company from Switzerland, and I didn't even realise he was up for the same award. And this was in Islington, and I'd only travelled down from Hackney, so I've travelled about 4 miles to the event, and he flew his own company in, and he was going for the same award from Switzerland. So yeah, it was really good because I did feel at times that I was kind of going in my own direction, and even my management team was like, Richie, you're kind of like in your own world, whereas we're here in the beauty industry, you just focus on HR. So it got to a point sometimes where I was thinking, okay, maybe I need to refocus, but Investors in People saw what I did. They came in, they looked at all the internal workings of the company, and I'm really glad I won it because I think I needed it. I needed it.
So again, that was your early, I guess your early steps into where you are today. So what was the steps you took then that led you down this path, and what did you?
Basically, a couple of years ago, I actually went to the doctors because I was having sleeping issues. When Brexit and all that happened, because I was an international company, and we lost a lot of our students. We lost nearly 50-60% of our students. They were all mostly from Europe and from outside of the UK, outside of Europe as well, but mainly they were from Europe. So when Brexit happened and, it dragged on for 3 years. It's still dragging on now. We still don't know where we're at with it. We know that we're out, but we don't know the rules and regulations. And if you remember, it kept on extending it for 6 months, then another 6 months. And basically as time went on, my booming business started to struggle because of the situation. And I didn't know, I was one of those men. I'm 42 years old, so I grew up in that generation where we were just told to man up, pull yourself together, mate, sort yourself out. And that's the generation I come from. We never talked about mental health at school. We never talked about college. In the early years of working in jobs in my 20s, mental health was not, the only thing I remember being said that geezer's a nutter. Or just addressing and labeling people with the most toxic kind of way possible, but we didn't know any better. So when I went to the doctor with sleep problems, after a series of appointments, they actually diagnosed with mixed depression and anxiety disorder. And I was shocked, Ciaran. I was shocked because I was like, I'm a man, I'm strong, these things don't affect me. This can't be right. And then it just kind of brought it all down to me that I have to do something else, something different, because recently one of my best friends, Derek, who's also the father to my godson, who's 22 now, he fell ill quite after we left college. Okay, and at that time, no one knew what was mental health, and he was actually schizophrenic. And he was schizophrenic for like 15 years, like running around on the street, schizophrenic. You need to tie him down and stuff. And eventually he threw himself under a train. That whole period of 15 years, I didn't know what to do. I was just, my hopes were pinned on the doctors doing something to make him better. And obviously when you get to the schizophrenic age, a mental health first aid, they can't do anything about that. That's purely down to the doctors. So I lost him, and my godson lost his father as well. And my ex-girlfriend, 3 years ago, she also she lost her life over mental health as well. She was actually suffering from diabetes. And this is the thing, all these things can trigger mental illness. You know, childbirth can trigger PTSD, for example. You know, so she became diabetic and she started losing her sight due to it. And then they were talking about cutting off certain limbs for her to survive through the diabetes. And she fell mentally ill and she died as well. Then, so when I got to a stage in my life, I was thinking, what I really want to do has been around me my whole life, but I just didn't know because I was too busy doing other things. You know, I admit I was following. I went to university, I opened a business, I became successful, I won awards. And it got to the stage where I was thinking, do you know what? I still haven't done anything of what I really want to do. And that's not good for my mental health. And it had impacted me without me even knowing. So I founded Mental Health and Life to address exactly these issues, you know, because I want everybody to be able to talk to someone in those initial stages, even in the moderate stages, even in the severe stages, and say, hey, here's the help, you know. And luckily for us, we live in an amazing part of the world where all these help, there's so many beautiful charities and beautiful organizations. And I know the NHS is you know, direly underfunded and they might not be able to give you the help immediately that you want, because I know the waiting list can be from 6 to 18 months, you know, and for someone that's mentally ill, that's a lifetime, you know. But there's all these charities in between and these front rooms all over the UK that will accept people with open arms, and we don't have to get from that mild symptoms to the person that then goes and commits suicide. You know, and when somebody does, what does everyone around them say? I never knew that was going to happen. You could have never said, because no one decided to have a conversation with that person. You know, and that's the importance of mental health first aid.
Amazing, yeah, and again, as you say, there's so many real costs and impacts on people in their personal life and in work as well. So you've probably seen, and you've mentioned already, some reports you've seen that there is a real cost and impact for employers and employees.
Well, yes, I mean, you know, there's a lot of people asking, you know, should employers, you know, take on mental health first aiders? Should they get, I mean, right now, it's not even should they might not have a choice. Mental Health First Aid England, who is the licensed governing body for mental health first aid, has launched a campaign called Where's Your Head At? Okay, and that campaign is pushing for legislation change to make sure that there's a mental health first aider within every organisation, exactly as first aid at work. An amazing thing. This has already got 200,000 signatures to it, okay, and it's backed by Standard Chartered, WH Smiths, Thames Water, to name a few. You know, and due to what everything's happening, employers might actually not have a choice, and it's going to be a revolution for mental health, because, like I said before, we spend all our lives at work. If we're not mentally, if our well-being's not good there, we're going to carry on into our personal lives, into our families, into our social time, you know. So if this legislation is going to happen, it's best for employers to understand that this is happening. Even if it didn't happen, they must know, because Deloitte's report in January they actually said that the UK employers are losing £54 billion a year due to mental health issues. 54 billion. Now, you can look at this report online, just put Deloitte Mental Health Report. This was just this year in January 2020. 45 billion a year, okay? Now, if any industry or if any company was losing that much money, okay, shareholders would go crazy. Yeah, sorry to use that word. Shareholders would go crazy. CEOs would get sacked. They'd spend millions of pounds bringing change management teams in to plug that hole. But where is mental health? Everyone's still sitting on their hands. And I think, Ciaran, there's a reason for that, because a lot of the people that are in the positions of CEOs and managing directors actually are from my generation who doesn't understand it. Okay? And there's got to be that education of the guys at the top to understand what's going on. But I mean, if they don't understand it, Deloitte said in their report that since 2016, the cost is going up 16% every year. It's costing employees $6 billion every year because of mental health issues. And they also said that for every £1 invested in mental health in organizations, they get £5 back on return on investment. Now, as a past company director and business consultant, that's a fivefold profit that you get back. You know, if that doesn't register with you, I'm not sure if you should be running a business, you know? So and that's where I stand on the matter. You know, it's an absolute no-brainer, you know, and without, what I advise the business community to do is, without waiting for it to become law, because I don't know if you know what GDPR is. Okay, so when they introduced GDPR, almost like a rush, it hit most employers. It hit like oh my God, what is this? Okay, and then in the end, what local businesses did, they sat on it, and as the deadline come, they rushed forward and got it sorted out. Don't do this with mental health first aid. Okay, this is happening. You're going to need this for your company. Take the steps now. Approach a provider. Okay, like myself, when we do the consulting, there's no obligation. You know, we'll come and do it. And if you want to go ahead, then go approach a provider, look at your mental health policy, look at your policies and implement that, you know, from now. Don't wait till the deadline, because, you know, you can put yourself a year forward, okay? And you can identify it's corporate social responsibilities that every organization needs to have. And it's the best one you can do right now, Ciaran. So, you know, I urge employers, sort this out, because it's needed now more than ever.
I totally agree. It's strange days, and I'm just thinking we were obviously going through our day-to-day life pre-COVID, and then all of a sudden we have a switch like this to something new, and we find that our teams are working in isolation. And again, in the strange environment, your home and office is blended into one. There's new pressures, new challenges, as we talked about. It's strange days out there. So what is the process? So going in and what happens to someone or a company? A trainer comes in and assesses the company. What's the steps?
So I mean, one of the most basic things a company can do is just, you know, go look at their first aid at work people. Okay, how many first aid at work people have you got? Because there will be a reason, because their company is 5 people or 10 people or 1,000 people, they will need by law a certain amount of first aiders on site at any given point. Match those first aiders with mental health first aiders. In fact, first aiders are the ideal people to actually get trained as mental health first aiders as well. Because if you come across someone with self-harm who's self-harming, you might have to give first aid there and then while you're talking to them. And that's why I always advise people that do mental health first aid courses, have a backup, do first aid at work as well, because you might need to use it. You could come in front of a colleague who's constantly scratching their elbow like this, or scratching a part of their body, and you can ask them what's happening there. And they might be self-harming, and you might have to, you know, sort them out right there and then. And that's the thing, and that's a good example of what a mental health first aider is, because they are a first aider in the mental spectrum, if you know what I mean. A first aider, if you've got a cut, they'll know how to patch you up, but the next stop is the hospitals to see a doctor or a nurse. And that's what we do as mental health first aiders. We ask you what's wrong, look at that, okay, here's where you need to go. So what I tell organizations is match your first aiders with mental health first aiders. That's the most basic you can do. Now, if you want to go a step forward and you're a conscientious company and you have HR policies and practices around well-being and mental health, what you can do is you can ask someone like Mental Health and Life to come in and have a look at your organization. Now, what we'll do is we'll start with the CEO. I always like to start at the top, because if the man and the woman at the top doesn't understand, then one day you're going to meet this block where your policy that you put forward won't go any further, because people will think when they get to the top, you know, he or she will think, okay, we don't need to spend that money. But the fact is, Ciaran, mental health first aid is one of the cheapest services a business can get right now. It's actually a mental health first aid level 3 course, which is the highest course, starts from around £180 to £250. The standard first aid at work course costs around £250. You know, so even for the smallest company, it's a tiny investment with a huge return on your investment, you know, and it's not just in the monetary terms, because it's going to make your staff more stable and happy at work. And as through my company, I proved that once your staff are happy and well nurtured and well balanced, your bottom line grows, and I'm trying to change this mentality with directors that their bottom line is what the accountant puts forward to them at the end of every financial year. It's not. Your bottom line are actually your staff, because, and I tell the staff this. I speak to HR departments and I tell HR departments, it's not happy staff, happy company as such. Yes, it is, but it's also happy boss, happy company, because a lot of the time, your boss is probably going through so much stuff you don't know, but he can't speak to anyone about it because he's the boss or she's the boss, and they don't feel comfortable telling you what the real problems are, okay? And they might need more help when it comes to mental health than anyone else in the organization. But a lot of companies will look at their boss like they're a Teflon Don, he's the man, she's the woman, they can't, they're untouchable, they got this, but they haven't. And I found out that the hard way, I'm living proof of that.
Wow, no, amazing. And then, so basically back to it, it's not that costly then to get everyone in an organisation through some form or even an introduction into this training and give them these skills then for life?
Yeah, so how the consulting process works is that say you have a company with 50 staff, okay? I'd come in, I'd be like, right, you're the CEO, okay? You've got senior managers, line managers, and then staff, okay? At the staff level, okay, it all comes down to certain factors. When it comes to supervisors, how many people do they manage? Okay, let me start with the staff. With the staff, I will say, right, with the staff, as a bare minimum, get them all a half-day awareness course. Okay, so there's not one person, even the office junior or the temporary school experience person can get this course. It costs around £80 to £100. Okay, because what that does is it introduces mental health as an everyday subject at your workplace. Okay, there's no stigma then. Okay, then you look at the supervisors and the mid-level managers. Depending on how big their teams and how much contact they have with people on a day-to-day basis, you can choose between a level 2 course or a level 3 course, which is the highest. Okay, but I always push for anyone that's in management, middle management and above, always go for the level 3 full first aider course. Okay, because or if you really want, give them the whole first aid course. It's really up to you. It depends how much you want to spend and how you want to implement it, okay? And what I advise companies is start with mental health first aid and then go to whoever you want to build the rest of your well-being campaign. But if we're not talking about it, it's not worth building well-being strategies and frameworks within your company, because then it's just a tick box exercise, and let's not make mental health a tick box exercise.
Incredible. And you talked about our generation, so I'm in the same bracket as you. I look about 20 years older, but right. See, that's it. The topic we're talking about, yeah, very, very practical. You've come through the tunnel and see the light. But there's industries like I'm thinking that where it's dominated, and you have to be rough and tough. Thinking of construction, and I guess there's so many more like that. There's challenges there that probably aren't being addressed, and they're years away from it.
Yeah, this is a really good question. I'm glad you answered it, Ciaran, because us men, we're extremely complicated. We're more complicated than we like to actually talk about our let off, because we are constantly being told that we have to be men. And I hate to use the word toxic masculinity, but the whole environment that we're brought up from when we were children, it has been toxic, okay? We struggle to talk about things, okay? Men in the UK between 40 to 50, which I fall into, okay, has the highest rates of suicides rates in the UK. We are the ones that's killing ourselves the most. We have to ask ourselves why, okay? The construction industry, the male-dominated industry, has the highest level of suicides of any profession in the UK. 3 people kill themselves every week in the construction sector, okay? And then we talk about the BAME communities. And when you talk about BAME communities, people instinctively think we're talking about Black or Asian people. No, the Irish community and the Chinese community fall into that. The Irish community are the most likely to get hospitalized for mental health. And that's a conversation the Irish community has to have a conversation with them. So what's happening here? Why are we the most hospitalized for it? And then it comes down to that stigma, because as men, we don't want to talk about it, because we feel that if we do, we're not men anymore, and we have to kill that culture, okay? And I insist that this conversation starts at home, okay? Because the ladies are amazing, because no matter what they talk about everything, and that's a good thing. They get together, and and sometimes with men, we just need to talk. But what we not tend to do is we'll meet up with our friends, we'll go to the pub or something, or play football. How are you, Ciaran? I'm all right. How are you, Richie? I'm all right. Have a drink, have a bit of laugh and a joke, and we go home. And what happens? We wake up the next day, less money in our pockets, a hangover, and our problems haven't gone away. Okay, so what men do is we self-medicate, okay, through alcohol and substances, and we forget about it for a moment, but it catches up on us. And this same generation that was brought up like us, you know, where we were told to man up and be strong and pull yourself together, we're now killing ourselves at the highest rate of anyone else in the UK. Okay, and we need to open this conversation with men. BAME communities need to talk to, you know, we need to turn around. For example, the Irish community who's most hospitalised, it's time for the women in the Irish community to turn around to their men and say to them, do you know what? We understand what you guys are going through. It's okay to talk about it, and start the conversation like that. And you know, I use Tyson Fury, not just with the Irish, I use Tyson Fury as my blanket person, yeah, when it comes to mental health. Okay, no one you're going to meet is harder than him. He's 6'9". He's the heavyweight champion of the world. Okay, and he got himself into such a mental state that he was looking to drive his car into a bridge. He came past that, lost all the weight, and became heavyweight champion of the world for the second time. And he is probably the greatest boxer alive after Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson. Okay, if a man like Tyson Fury can talk about mental health, any person in the Irish community or any community can talk about mental health. And it's very important that this conversation starts. And I do feel that it's very important that the females in these communities, in these BAME communities, actually turn around to their men, to their brothers, to their sons, to their cousins, to their uncles, and say, do you know what? We know what's going on with you guys. Let's talk about it, you know? And you know, if you have a mental health first aid train, you're in a better position to talk about it, you know? But just to start that initial conversation, it's just asking someone a little bit more than, how are you today, uncle? How are you today, dad? You know, and then taking it from there. And I think as men, you know, we are dying and crying out for it.
Incredible. What a role model for mental health recovery there is Mr. Tyson. So we've seen him watch them, as you say, watch him box and then go through his trouble and think that's it, it's all over, but to come back through that, and actually, yeah, he's, as you say, he does speak about it and shares that, and is removing some of the stigma around it. So it's incredible to watch his journey, and these we've got many more fights, I'm sure, ahead.
Oh yeah, I'm so excited. Yeah. I want him to take all the belts again. And so.
Yeah. What a guy! Yeah. So is sitting down and talking about this, is that the start of moving forward?
Well, yes, because people generally commit suicide when they've got to a place in their life when they feel they have no other choice. Okay, and that journey could have taken decades for some, you know. And during that period, because no one who's suicidal wakes up today and they're suicidal. Things happen to them, or has been happening to them, or has happened to them, that they are now thinking, right, my only way out to solve this problem of how I'm feeling or whatever I'm going through is to take my own life. You know, and there's a lot of stigma at the moment. There's a lot of gender wars going on, which I think is really bad for men at the moment as well. You know, and men need a lot of love, and it's time to turn around and say, do you know what? We're men. We're not hard anymore. Yes, we are hard. Yes, women. We can do all of that, but we also need this. We also need love. We also need attention. We also need conversation about this stuff, because we are actually struggling. You know, and then on the flip side of that, Ciaran, okay. On record now, female teenage suicide is the highest on record. Female teenage suicide, okay? And I have a strong feeling, and from what I've read, that it's a lot to do with social media, okay? And this is something that we need to be aware of as well. When I was a kid, if you wanted to come into my house, you have to knock on the door, risk my mum or dad or one of my other family members opening the door, okay? Phone my house on the house phone, okay? Explain who you are and ask for me if I don't pick up the phone. You know, you were monitored before you got through to me, basically, yeah? My mum and dad knew who you were and where you were from and what your background is. We now have kids running around with mobile phones and laptops and iPads, okay? And there's strangers from all over the world coming into your home, okay? That you don't even know about, having conversations with your children that you will never know about. Okay, and this is another thing we need to do. So, I got bullied at one point at school, but when I got home, I was safe. Okay, these bullies are now at school and also on everyone's phone. They're never left alone. And with social media of how you should look and all the stuff that goes with that, there's literally no policing when it comes to social media. We also need to be very mindful of that as adults and parents, of what's actually happening in your home online as well. And that's another thing, I know I've taken it away from the men, but I don't want to make this all about men,
Just I'm thinking again, how many examples of problems and challenges that all age groups, all sexes, everyone is facing their own battle and journey. And I guess, again, thinking there's probably not many people who haven't been touched through their life by suicide in their family or friends, or to know someone. And again, I'm thinking of some of the recent cases I've seen, and externally looking at the people, they look like they're living the perfect life. Everything looks amazing. But as you say, there's something not right, and that's been going on for years and years and years. And finally,
one of the saddest things that happened recently. I don't watch Love Island, but the lady, the presenter, I forget her name right now. Okay, and she got into some domestic, and she was in her 40s as well. Really beautiful, charming lady, and she presented Love Island for many years. And all of a sudden, this domestic abuse case came out, and next thing she took her life. And questions need to be asked, because at those times, whether you're a celebrity or not, where was the family? Where was the best friends? Okay, because obviously she took this decision, she didn't speak to anyone about it, and she took her life. And when people commit suicide, this is what they do. Okay, mental health first aid training will help you spot certain signs, because sometimes that someone's committing suicide will be in a really depressed mode, and then all of a sudden you meet them and they'll be happy, they'll be elated. Usually this happens because they've set a date for their death. They bought all the equipment they need, okay? And they'll do certain things like they'll make a will. Yeah, so for mental health first aid training teaches you how to spot all these signs and symptoms, and when someone is acting a certain way, it gives you the training to identify what this person possibly could be going through. Like I said, we're not doctors, we're not therapists or counselors, but as human beings, we're smart enough to get trained to spot these signs. And that is why mental health first aid is so important. And I know I said this before. It's that from when that lady committed suicide, okay, she must have been going through some stuff. She didn't wake up that day and think, I'm going to kill myself, okay? And that's the thing, there's a lot of suicide stuff, especially on men online. And a lot of the time, the theme that you'll find is how long they suffered their mental illness without getting help. I mean, to be honest, Ciaran, you just said you never sat there and talked to anyone about mental health, and, no one really knows what you might be going through. And as a human being, if you've not been through being bullied at some point, someone close to you have died, you've not had bills you can't afford, your kids have put you through stuff, you might have substance abuse. There's no human being on this world that's born and gets to the retirement age without having stuff, without having things that happen to you that impact your mental health. Okay, so this is not for this age group or that age group or for this person or for that person. Okay, it's for every single person out there, and that's why I always say, even if you are a solitary person and you have two mates, do the awareness course. It's not a bad thing, because ultimately it's going to save a life, Ciaran, and surely that's worth the few pounds you might spend on a course, what you'll spend in the pub on a Friday night, to get yourself qualified. That could save someone's life for the rest of your life.
No, again, and you called out a few things there, and there's some of those that definitely, as you say, they've been there. I got bullied in school, university. My best friend sadly committed suicide. The kids, thankfully, are young yet, so I haven't been put through something like that, but who hasn't been through some difficult times? So, as you say, no, it's gosh, and thinking back, there's some challenges there that doors close, and I can imagine for some people they stay closed. So it's really tough and interesting again to talk. I don't think, as I say, I've actually sat down and chatted about this. So we're talking about the stigma around mental health, and there's definitely been a move in the last couple of months or a year or two, and and these high-profile cases do help make people aware of it. We've got Tyson and then Love Island. But do you think we're 1%, or we still have, or are we 10% or 50% on the journey? We've still a lot of work to do. Is that what you think?
I'll be honest with you. It breaks my heart to see where we're at. I think the stigma around mental health has been so bad. Okay, we're literally in the dark ages with all of this. Okay, but we have got to a point where we're now willing to talk about it, and COVID has played a big part. As I said, we've got Prince William now doing his mental health charity, and all these people that's getting involved really helps, because certain parts of the communities appeal to certain people. So, I might follow boxing and Tyson Fury. So if he's talking about it, I'll come across mental health there. Whereas my daughter might follow Miley Cyrus. And if she's not talking, we need everyone to start actually talking about it. And to be honest, we're getting there. We're getting there. But compared to where we are with physical health, okay, we're miles away. Every single person knows, if someone falls down on the floor in front of you, you help them, you go to them, you pick them up, and you might put them on a chair. That's his first aid, okay? But when it comes to mental health, no, we don't know what to do, okay? And it's actually easier than running to someone, picking them up and putting them on a chair, because all you're doing is sit in front of someone and using your mouth, which we do day in, day out, So it's this massive elephant in this room. I don't know if it's the room itself that you're sitting in. Elephant in the room is undermining the topic. It's the room you're sitting in that's just dying out for a simple conversation to happen. And we'll get there, but we are decades behind as it is right now.
So for anyone watching this, what first steps? I have to say, this is probably the first time in an interview I've actually felt a little bit uncomfortable in an interview. It's probably came across as well. Yeah. But again, back to, it's because of the topic that we're talking about, and you're making me think about things, and realise things that are very, they're in front of all of us. So it's again, I'm delighted that we're having this chat. But I'm thinking again, if there's anyone else watching this and in the same place as where I am now, what is your advice to them? How do they start to look at this for themselves, for their business, and for people around them?
So I assure you that there's nearly every single person that's going to listen to this interview is going to, unless they're being through therapy or they're being through a journey where they've tried to make themselves well again, they will be feeling like, oh my God, am I okay? That's okay. We all feel like that, okay? So don't feel bad about it. But I advise that if you do feel like this, and you do feel like, I've come to a stage in my life, I'm this old, this has happened to me, that perhaps I need to talk about it. You've got all these organizations. You can call the Samaritans, for example, and have a chat with someone on the Samaritans. You've got Mind, okay? Just go online and say, you can just Google, I'm feeling down, I want to talk to someone about mental health, and you get loads and loads of organizations come up that you can just pick up the phone and talk to them. And, if they diagnose you or send you to someone to be diagnosed with whatever it is, it could just be, you just need to talk to someone. And as a mental health first aider, what I notice is that just talking to someone lifts them spirits, because they feel like they've got these things inside them that they've not had a channel to get out, okay? And that's so healthy for us, mentally, spiritually, physically, because mental health actually impacts us physically. Depression makes problems in your gut, for example, So mental health is really important. So anyone that's feeling like that, even with you, Ciaran, it's okay. It's all right. There's no shame in picking up the phone to the Samaritan and say, I had this conversation. I did this interview today. Yeah. And I just want to know where I'm at with it. And that's what I advise everybody to do. Now, for people that want to do mental health first aid courses, please do it. Please do it. It's cheap. It's one of the cheapest courses you can do. And it's going to be the most rewarding and mind-blowing courses you'd ever do. And you can do them online. Just jump online. You can do it from the comfort of your own home. So get one done. Even just dip your toes in with a half-day course, or go the whole hog and do the level 3 course. It costs around £180. It's not going to break the bank, but the benefits and the rewards you get. And what I found out as a mental health first aider as well is the connection you make with people. Okay, people, total strangers. Sometimes I do it over the phone. Sometimes I do it over Zoom, and sometimes I do it face to face. And even when I teach my courses, once we get the subject matter out, and by the end of the second day, it's like we're best friends because it's a topic that just brings us together. There is no discrimination when it comes to mental health. This is the great thing. It doesn't matter where you're from, who you are, what age, what color, what brand, it doesn't matter, okay? Because it's a human issue, you know? So unless you're not human, there's no way that we cannot relate and feel the same way. You feeling sad, I feel the sad exactly the same way. You know, and this is the great thing about this topic and mental health first aid itself, because it is actually going to start. And I'm really glad, I'm really hoping, well, it will happen when it becomes legislation, because like I said, we spend most of our times at work. And once we make the workplace mentally well, okay, everything's kind of going to offshoot from that, you know. So yeah, I advise everyone, do a mental health first aid course, because you can immediately you can impact the people around you and yourself, you know.
Incredible. Excellent. No, again, Richie, look, thank you very much for raising this topic today. It's been an insightful awakening. You know, you're raising awareness of something that I think, as you say, I definitely feel people are more aware of it and open to it today than ever before. So genuinely, thank you for taking time to talk to us today. What I would ask is if anyone wants to connect with you, find out more about what you're doing, or get some more insight into mental health, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, you can. I'm on LinkedIn, so my profile is called Richie Perera, R-I-C-H-I-E Perera. That's P-E-R-E-R-A. It's a bit of a mouthful, but you've got that. But my company is called Mental Health and Life. Okay, so if you just put in mentalhealthandlife.org, the website will pop up. And everything we do, our charity work, the services we provide, all pops up. And I would love to have some viewers from here on one of my online courses. I would absolutely love to. And I particularly want to reach out to people in sectors such as construction, teaching, okay, blue light services, okay, come forward and do these courses. Okay, because it's so beneficial for you, because we know what you kind of go through. A lot of the people that I do, I actually come from these backgrounds, especially teachers, because they're under so much pressure right now, and people like in the NHS and blue light service, including police service, etc. Also, people that work in the prison service. You know, come forward and do these courses, because it is so rewarding and it's so beneficial. You know, and ultimately, the few quid you spend doing these courses could save your life or somebody else's. So, you know, just come forward. And, you know, if anyone wants to contact me, the email address is on my website. And if you just want to have a talk or a chat about how you're feeling, I'll do that. First, before everything, I'm a mental health first aider. And if I have time, I will make time for you, or I'll point you in the right direction to 4 people that you can actually talk to. And also, Ciaran, you know, if you feel that you do need to, it's okay to speak about this during an interview. If you do feel that, you know what, I need to check in on myself, then go ahead and do that. You know, Google some organizations, speak to the Samaritan, speak to mine, okay, and make sure that you're okay and that everything's you're going for, because as men, we just carry it all around.
Yeah,
you know,
that was amazing. No, great advice, and as you say, making it normal that people can do this, or acceptable. I think that's incredible. So again, thank you very much. What we do, we make sure is we put live links through to your LinkedIn profile and your website, so anyone can click through and get straight through and connect and find out what you're doing and find out about the courses. So again, Richie, thank you very much for your time today. That's been brilliant.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thanks for having me. And, you know, I'm so glad I had this outlet, because it's so important what we're talking about here. And I really hope that, you know, we both can go forward after this interview and make an impact first on ourselves, remember, and then the people around us.
Amazing, for sure. Again, thank you, Richie, and thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this conversation. Wow, I have to say, mental health at the moment, it's so important, and for sure, as Richie's saying, it's only going to become more important for all of us. So hopefully you enjoy this conversation, you learned something. Please do share it on social media, click through the links and connect with Richie on LinkedIn, or check out his website, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you again.